Good evening. It was December 2001 when then President George W. Bush made this announcement.
For several years, the people of Afghanistan have suffered under one of the most brutal regimes in modern history. A regime allied with terrorists and a regime at war with women. Thanks to our military and our allies and the brave fighters of Afghanistan, the Taliban regime is coming to an end.
Tonight, 20 years later, the Taliban regime is back. After sweeping across Afghanistan's provinces in a matter of days, Taliban forces have entered the capital city of Kabul. On Saturday, the Afghan president, Ashraf Ghani, told the Afghan people in a recorded message that remobilizing the nation's security forces was his top priority. But today, Ghani fled Kabul, and the supposedly 300,000 strong US-funded Afghan military has all but vanished. Afghans in Kabul are making a run on the nation's banks, and many more are contemplating their fate as the Taliban consolidates its rule. You are looking at video obtained today by Al Jazeera of Taliban fighters milling about in the presidential palace in Kabul. NBC News has verified the authenticity of this video. Tonight, we're dedicating the entire show to the imminent and catastrophic end to America's longest war. I've been deeply depressed this weekend watching the scenes out of Afghanistan, and I've been thinking about the big lie. And we talk about that idea these days, a gross propagandistic distortion of the truth. We rightly apply it to Donald Trump's unhinged efforts to convince the world that he won an election that he lost soundly and fairly. But there have been other big lies in America's recent history. For 20 years, presidents of both parties told us again and again that we were winning in Afghanistan, that all the money we poured into the Afghan military was worth it, that the 2,300 US troops killed there since 2001 hadn't died in vain. George W. Bush said it. Barack Obama said it. Donald Trump said it. Joe Biden said it, just in April.
We have trained and equipped a standing force of over 300,000 Afghan personnel today, and hundreds of thousands over the past 2 decades. And they'll continue to fight valiantly on behalf of the Afghans at great cost.
And yet, here we are, because no one wanted to tell the simple truth that American ingenuity and dollars and weaponry cannot remake the world in our image. Our leaders knew that. The Washington Post's 2019 investigation into the Afghanistan papers, a trove of classified interviews with US and Afghan officials, showed that those officials knew victory was an illusion, but they told the American public otherwise. They lied to us. That flawed idea of American greatness also led to magical thinking in the current administration about how this would all end. Here was President Biden again, just last month.
The Taliban is not the North Vietnamese army. They're not remotely comparable in terms of capability. There's going to be no circumstance where you see people being lifted off the roof of an embassy of the United States from Afghanistan. It is not at all comparable.
How wrong was he? As the sounds of gunfire echo through Kabul, you can also see a US Army Chinook helicopter moving over the city, one of several American helicopters spotted evacuating personnel from the US Embassy there. A State Department official tells NBC News almost all embassy personnel have now relocated from the embassy to a facility on the Hamid Karzai International Airport. Officials today said the US is putting 1,000 more American troops into Kabul to aid in the mass evacuations of US personnel. Now, I'm the last person to criticize Joe Biden's decision to go through with this withdrawal from Afghanistan. I support it. But in its botched execution and wishful thinking, in its failure to anticipate the speed of the Taliban's advance against demoralized Afghan soldiers working for a weak government, made even weaker by corruption, the Biden administration failed to prepare for the humanitarian crisis that is unfolding now. For months, the administration has struggled just to evacuate 2,000 interpreters and family members who aided the US coalition in Afghanistan. But as many as 100,000 of them have sought asylum. And as the Taliban noose tightens around Kabul, the number is growing. Yet the big lie of America's unstoppable greatness, our military power, persists. You can hear it tonight in the voices of armchair experts who argue that this war was winnable with just a little bit more time. Or even that this defeat would have been handled better by Donald Trump. Yeah, the self-absorbed wrecking ball who invited the Taliban to Camp David for negotiations before a 9/11 anniversary 2 years ago. Remember that? Then cancelled the meeting after a backlash. That idea of American greatness has led us to fail the test of American goodness. Let's be clear, we killed a lot of innocent people in Afghanistan over 2 decades, and now even more innocent people are being killed as we leave.